Hello, everyone. Welcome to Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. I'm your host, Alex Cardinale. Here on Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale, I discuss America's worst tragedies and I discuss what we can learn from these worst tragedies that happened in the United States history. So today we're going to talk about a terrible airplane collision and airplane crash. As a matter of fact, over the next couple episodes of Keeping It Real, I'm going to talk about some airplane crashes. Now, airplanes are one of the safest automobiles that you can ride. They're also one of the safest ways that you can travel, but sometimes collisions and crashes do happen and they can have devastating results with the death of all passengers on flight. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight's tragedy took place in a city in California, and it caused the fatality of everyone on board the AeroMexico plane, as well as the three people on the Piper airplane. I came across this horrific tragedy on a television show called Mayday, which spotlights tragic airplane crashes. So, thanks to Mayday, I learned about this case, and now I'm discussing it here on this episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. So, today's tragedy. On August 31st, 1986, AeroMexico Flight 498, traveling from Mexico to California, was hit in the tail section by a Piper airplane, causing both planes to crash and kill everyone on board the airplane. So the AeroMexico Flight 498 flew into a residential city, killing everyone on board the AeroMexico plane and killing a couple of people on the ground. The Piper airplane crashed and landed in a nearby elementary school playground, which thankfully was unoccupied at the time. The collision was so fierce and so intense that the three passengers on the Piper airplane were decapitated, meaning their heads were cut off, and they lost their cockpit. So, tragic, tragic accident. We're going to learn tonight that this collision and this deadly accident could have been avoided if proper protocol was followed. So, this really was a horrific tragedy that could have been avoided. Now, this happened in a town in California called Celios, California, I believe. And I apologize if I botched the name there because I'm trying to remember from off the top of my head. So, share your thoughts on this tragedy in the comments. Later on in the show, I'm going to go over my thoughts. So let's go ahead and get started and start discussing this awful tragedy. So here is what to know about this awful tragedy. On August 31st, 1986, AeroMexico's Flight 498 suffered an accident in Cerratos, California, while approaching Los Angeles International Airport, which as Americans know as LAX. The disaster resulted in a total of 82 fatalities. That means 82 people lost their lives, including 15 on the ground, with these figures rendering the tragedy the airline's deadliest accident. Aero Mexico Flight 498, departed from Mexico City International Airport on Sunday, August 31st, 1986. It was en route to Los Angeles with 3 stopovers in the Mexican cities of Guadalajara, Laredo, and Taiwan. The airline operated the flight with a McDonnell Douglas DC-9 The aircraft first flew with Delta Airlines in April of 1969. It served the U.S. legacy carrier for over a decade before eventually transferring to AeroMexico in November of 1979. According to the Aviation Safety Network, the plane had 59 passengers and 6 crew members aboard when it crashed. The cockpit crew of Flight 498 consisted of Captain Arturo Valdez-Prom, who was 46 years old, and First Officer Jose Hector Valencia, who was 26 years old. The captain had 4,632 hours of flying experience in a DC-9 and a total of 10,641 flight hours. The first officer had flown 1,463 hours, of which 1,245 hours had been acclimated in the DC-9. The other airplane involved was a Piper plane driven by the 3 members of the Kraken family. AeroMexico's McDonnell Douglas DC-9 collided with a Piper PA-28181 flying from Torrance to Big Bear City, California. Now, here are some tragic details about this collision and this crash. The Piper airplane crashed in the unoccupied playground at Cerrados Elementary School, with the 3 family members being decapitated. My God, what a sight that must have been for first responders. And thank God there were no children in that playground, because if there was children there to witness a plane landing with 3 people sitting in their seats with no heads, it would have been a traumatic sight for sure for them to see. Awful. I can't help but wonder if the first responders had post-traumatic stress from seeing that on the ground. Now, on the other hand, with the DC-9 crash, there were no human bodies found, because most of the bodies were probably torn apart with the impact of the crash, and most of them probably vaporized with the jet fuel. So very, very sad. So after the Piper airplane hit the DC-9, the DC-9 lost its horizontal stabilizer and most of its vertical stabilizer, immediately entering a dive as a result. The plane subsequently hit a residential neighborhood and exploded. 5 homes were destroyed and 7 were damaged. The 64 people on board AeroMexico's flight perished, as well as 15 residents of the Cerrados neighborhood. Now, here is what to know about the investigation that was done by the United States National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB launched an investigation following the accident. It found that the Piper aircraft had entered Los Angeles Terminal Control Area airspace without the required clearance. The NTSB determined that the probable cause of the accident was the limitations of the air traffic control system to provide collision protection, though both air traffic control procedures and automated redundancy. In addition to the inadvertent and unauthorized entry of the PA-28 Piper into the LA terminal control area, another factor at play was the limitations of the see and avoid concept to ensure traffic separation. At the time of the accident, the Piper was not required to have a Mode C transponder, which would have indicated its altitude. Additionally, the Los Angeles traffic control system did not have automatic warning systems. Following AeroMexico's accident, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, required that all jets in United States airspace be equipped with a traffic collision avoidance system. Following the accident, the FAA also required light aircraft like the Piper PA-28 that collided with the DC-9 to install Mode C transponders to report their altitude. So that's what we know about this horrific tragedy. Now let's talk more in depth about this horrific tragedy, because that's what it was. It was a horrific tragedy that happened on accident, but also it could have been prevented if the Piper pilot did not go near the DC-9 and followed the rules of airplanes. So here's the accident. On Sunday, August 31st, 1986, at approximately 11:46 a.m. Pacific Time, Flight 498 began its descent into Los Angeles with 58 passengers and 6 crew members on board. At 11:52 a.m., the Piper's engine collided with the left horizontal stabilizer of the DC-9, shearing off the top of the Piper's cockpit and decapitating Kramer and both of his passengers. The heavily damaged Piper fell onto an empty playground at Cerratos Elementary School. The DC-9, with all of its horizontal stabilizer and most of its vertical stabilizer separated, inverted, and immediately entered a dive. It slammed into a residential neighborhood at Holmes Avenue and Reva Circle in Cerratos, crashing into the backyard of a house at 13426 Ashworth Place, where it exploded on impact. The explosion scattered the DC-9's wreckage across Holmes Ave and onto Carmina Road, destroying 4 other houses and damaging 7 more. All 64 passengers and crew on board the DC-9 and 15 people on the ground were killed, and a fire added to the damage. 36 of the passengers were citizens of the United States. Of the 20 Mexican citizens, 11 lived in the United States and 9 lived in Mexico. 1 Salvadorian citizen lived in Islip, New York. 10 of the passengers were children. Neither pilot appeared to have attempted any evasive maneuvers because neither pilot sighted the other aircraft, although they were very in visual range. When an autopsy revealed significant artery blockage in Kramer's heart, public speculation arose suggesting that he experienced a heart attack that incapacitated him and led to the collision. But further forensic evidence discounted the theory, and Kramer's error was determined to be the main contributing factor to the collision. A jury ruled that the DC-9 bore no fault, instead deciding that Kramer and the FAA each acted equally negligent and bore equal responsibility. Federal Air Regulations 14 CFR 91113 requires pilots of all aircraft to maintain vigilance to see and avoid other aircraft that might be on conflicting flight paths. Now, this tragedy also caused families plenty of emotional distress. Think about it. The loved ones that were on the DC-9, they're coming home on a plane ride, and you're excited to see them. But then you get the breaking news that a DC-9 AeroMexico plane crashed in a city in Cerrados, California. That must have been heartbreaking. There were a lot of kids on that plane. 10 young kids lost their lives. Terribly, terribly, terribly saddening. It was horrific. Now, imagine living on a street where that plane crashed. One such victim of this is a mother of some children and a wife. Her name is Teresa Estrada, whose husband and 2 of 4 children were killed in the crash on the ground. So she lost 2 of her 4 kids and her husband. She ran to the store to get groceries for breakfast because it was Labor Day and they were going to have a Labor Day breakfast. But unfortunately, a tragic accident happened. The DC-9 struck their house, killing 2 of their 4 kids and her husband. Miraculously, her other 2 kids got out unharmed. Now, in the television documentary Mayday, Estrada reported that she saw the explosion from a distance. She arrived minutes later with her home consumed by fire and surrounded by burning homes, cars, and aircraft debris. That must have been a terrifying sight for Teresa Estrada. My thoughts and prayers are with Teresa Estrada, even though it is decades ago. Now, she did win some money for this. In a separate trial on damages, the Estrada family was awarded a total of $868,263 in economic damages and $4.7 million in non-economic damages, including $1 million for the negligent infliction of emotional distress. And I really appreciate that the United States and the state of California went to bat to make sure that Teresa Estrada got some money because she did go through a lot of emotional distress, as did everyone that lost people in this tragedy. So this was a horrific plane crash, and people lost their lives. 68 people aboard the AeroMexico DC-9 died because a Piper plane did not follow the rules and did not stay out of the LA area where commercial airliners have to fly to head to the airport. Because of that action, Kramer and his family were killed and decapitated. Now, it's an accident. We can't always put the blame and say that Kramer and his family were criminals. They were not. They were just not following the rules. And because they were not following the rules, they are to blame for this accident, even though they tragically lost their lives. It's a sad, sad, sad situation. And it's a 1 in a million kind of thing. We don't hear about plane collisions every day because people that are flying commercial airliners like American Airlines, Spirit Airlines, JetBlue, they are trained to be excellent airline flyers. They're trained to fly for long distances of time safely. And in 2020, we don't have that many airplane collisions or airplane crashes because these guys are really good. And we don't have hijackers attacking these planes anymore either. So, my thoughts on this collision, it's very tragic, very, very sad that everyone involved lost their lives. The 68 people aboard the DC-9, including the pilots and the captain and the first officer, and the three people on the Piper who were decapitated. It's a shame they lost their life because of an accident. It's also a shame that 15 people on the ground lost their lives. But with a tragedy comes a lesson. And that lesson was that American Airlines and traffic control needed to be improved. And because of this accident, it was greatly improved. Now, airlines and traffic control can alert other airplanes when a small Piper plane, for example, is coming in very close contact with the airline, and now collisions can be avoided. So that is the only good thing to come from this tragic accident. All right. So the final topic I have for this week's episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale is this question. How often do plane collisions and crashes happen? Well, in the United States of America, the chances of two airliners or an airliner and a general aviation aircraft being involved in a mid-air collision are slim to none. As we learned tonight, it's happened in the past, but because airliners are always on instrument flight plans, the air traffic control system now monitors each and every airline flight and has the responsibility of keeping green between. And keeping green between simply means keeping space between airliners, keeping IFR aircraft apart on their green radar scopes. So the chances that there will be another airplane collision, slim to none. How about an airplane crash? Very low to slim to none because these airline pilots and chiefs and first officers, they pick only the best of the best to be on these commercial airliners. All right. Well, I hope you learned a lot about this tragic accident. It definitely rocked America because it caused a change of some of aviation's flight rules. It was definitely a tragedy that made America better. On the next episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale, I'm going to break down another collision, another airplane crash that happened way back in the 70s. Learn about the collision and crash of Flight 182 on the next episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. With that, I'd like to invite you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already. Statistics are telling me that a big portion of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, American Alice Cardinale, because I've got something for everybody. I've got cooking and baking videos. I've got tropical fish keeping videos, wrestling videos, crime videos, tragedy videos, and Saturday Live, which is a fun talk show that has funny videos, jokes, a cooking demonstration, fish chat, and so much more. So be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, American Alex Cardinale. With that, I'd like to thank you for watching today's episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great rest of your day. And thank you so much for watching. Alex Cardinale saying peace out and thank you for watching.
Easter is quickly approaching. Happy Easter everyone. This is Easter Bunny Alex Cardinale and I'm inviting you to tune in and watch the Easter 2023 Bash live on Friday, April 7, 2023 at 10 p.m. Eastern 7 p.m. Pacific. It's going to be an extra good show on Good Friday. It is airing on my YouTube channel American Alex Cardinale. Also joining Easter Bunny Alex Cardinale will be Chef Alex, Aqua Alex, and Detective Alex. Chef Alex will have Easter dinner tips and recipes. Get your last-minute Easter dinner and dessert questions answered as well if you post questions in the comments. Aqua Alex will discuss tropical fish species that represent Easter. Detective Alex Cardinale will break down 2 crimes that happened on Easter. Easter Bunny Alex Cardinale will discuss bunnies and other Easter-themed topics. Plus, watch Easter Bunny Alex Cardinale paint some Easter eggs and frost some Easter sugar cookies. It all goes down live Friday, April 7, 2023 at 10 p.m. Eastern 7 p.m. Pacific on YouTube channel American Alex Cardinale. Happy Easter!